And we're live back at the Tracy Take. Thanks for joining us tonight. Ryan, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm excited. We're kind of now in this little lull period of the NFL, but now we get to just speculate, analyze, and then just know that we will notably be wrong come the fall,
Oh yeah.
come the fall season.
Oh yeah. But you're going to be
So
so much more wrong than you are right. That's what makes being right about an NFL player feel so good. So
yeah. Well, it's amazing now. I mean, we can already tell now. I mean, the NFC. I mean, we could probably pick off some of the division winners now.
oh yeah. But we could have
But
done that before the draft.
oh yeah, but when it comes to the AFC, though, I mean, we're going to be absolutely, completely wrong.
Yeah.
I think on so many of these picks. But they're not picks, just on our predictions. But it's always fun to speculate to see how this draft class went for these teams. And I think actually, based on what we just said there, I think this draft class is kind of the epitome of that. There's not too many. There's one or two bad draft classes that we'll get to today, but we're unlike last year's draft class. This year's draft class, we're really going to judge this draft class 2 years from now and see which teams made the mistakes, which teams didn't, because there's not too much standout talent, but at the same time, some teams, I mean, I feel like a lot of the drafts were pretty similar. A lot of teams just took the best player available in their decision. And that's kind of like based off my grade here, because we're going to be going over the NFC draft, the NFC Teams draft class, and just kind of our overall grades. But before we get into that, smash that subscribe button, hit that like button, share this video with your friends, comment on what your overall thoughts are on your team's draft class, what Ryan and I had to say about your team's draft class, or if there's something that we're missing. Today, Ryan and I, we're going to be going over the NFC conference and all those and the 16 teams draft class. Just give us, we'll just give our kind of overall grade, kind of what we liked, didn't like about each team. And we'll just kind of go from there. And but it's always fun. We're here in May, and the NFL schedule is coming out here soon, so we're excited to kind of start the new season. Essentially, I feel like it starts now. So going over number one, we're going to go with just essentially how ESPN has it, which is going to be, is that in alphabetical order, Ryan? That's a weird order to have.
That is a weird order to have. Well, I guess we're going to start out with your Atlanta Falcons then, because I don't know why that is in that order. But I think the Falcons had a fantastic draft. I'll let you say your piece here in a second, but I really like Drake London, probably one of the more versatile guys. He had the most jump ball catches in college football, or contested catches in college football, and he only ended up playing 8 or 9 games. Arnold Ebiketie was an extremely good pass rusher out of Penn State. A lot of really good pass rush moves, very physical with his hands. A lot of Falcons fans are upset they took Troy Anderson over Nakobe Dean, but Troy Anderson is a athletic monster, and if he can get coached up in Atlanta, I think he will be a force to be reckoned with. And then to cap off my point, I think they got a extremely promising developmental quarterback in the 3rd round in Desmond Ridder, just to kind of cap off what could be a really good draft class for the Atlanta Falcons. This is 2 years in a row. I think they've really done a very good job.
I'm excited for this new regime, Terry Fontenot as GM. I think he's done a good job so far. I like Arthur Smith. We haven't really been able to see just in his first season, I haven't really been able to see. Well, we've seen tidbits of just kind of his offensive mind and how creative he can get. They didn't really have the firepower, really. They didn't really have an offensive line for their to have a solid running game. They didn't have any offensive weapons outside of Kyle Pitts that could really kind of, he can really get creative with. Just because he didn't have also any other supporting weapons, with Calvin Ridley being gone essentially the whole year. Russell Gage was hurt for the first half of the year. Overall, I like the class. Troy Anderson, as you said, I mean, we want to talk about Jordan Davis, how he is a freak in nature, which he is, 6'6", 360, 4'8", 40, absolutely insane. Troy Anderson at Montana State what I think had the school record in tackles as linebacker. He also played quarterback and running back for some time. I'm not entirely sure if that was for his entire time at Montana State.
He played linebacker for 2 years, and then he also during that time was playing offense and defense. Like he was taking snaps all over the place.
Yeah. So he's 6'4", 240, ran a 4.4 40. Yeah. I mean, absolutely insane guy. I think combining him with I'm going to mispronounce it. Ebiketie. Arnold
Ebiketie.
Arnold Ebiketie. That sounds cooler. I like them. I mean, I agree with you. Their first 4 picks, can't complain. Not only do I think they took best player available, I also think that they got a lot of good talent to go along with that. And so, and I like taking Drake London there because I do think that there's a big drop off. And now, I mean, it's going to be some serious mismatch with Kyle Pitts, 6'4" on one side, then you have Drake London 6'5" on the other side. And this year for the Falcons is going to be a rebuild year. I mean, I think they're going to be picking in this spot again, if not even higher up. I'm thinking 4 wins, maybe 5 wins. They'll definitely win some divisional games because Carolina and New Orleans suck also.
Yeah, and we'll get into their drafts here in a second.
Yeah,
I don't think either of those teams are going to be in contenders this year.
Yeah.
But sorry, the one thing about this draft that I don't like, they didn't address the offensive line until the 6th round. I wish they would have gone further, but at the same time, I can't really make that argument too strong because they got really good players of need. In the positions that they did.
And I think one thing I was reading up on this, and so they're limited on cap space, and I think taking an offensive line, unless he's like a sure thing, like an Orlando Pace or a Penei Sewell. Well, not like Penei Sewell's a sure thing, but a Joe Thomas, for example, from Wisconsin that the Browns had, who's just a stalwart. I think that's going to be something that they might address in free agency. And after this season, I think I saw they only have about $89 million in guaranteed money, if I'm not mistaken, maybe $100 million. So they're going to have $100 million or something like that in salary cap space to use it, if not even more, depending on how much salary cap space goes up. So I think they're going to hit free agency really hard in this next offseason. And this is just, they're trying to build a young foundation, which is what they've done over the past 2 drafts. And so I will say taking Justin Schaefer at that in the 6th round, I think that's solid value, and he's a big guy. He played some big games, went up against some strong competition. If he's able to pan out and compete for that left guard spot against Jalen Mayfield, it's worth a shot, So
it's a 6th round pick. You just kind of throw it and hope he sticks to the roster.
Yeah. If I'm being honest, and correct me if I'm wrong, from where they were at, especially early on, I don't know who else they could have gotten that I would take over who they picked. So that's the one thing.
I mean, if you really look at it and break it down, I think where they would have gotten good value at offensive line would have been in the 3rd round, because there were no top 10 offensive linemen left at 8. They were completely out of offensive linemen to the point that the Patriots literally took a 3rd rounder at 29 for their 2nd pick. Maybe at the second half of the 1st round, but weren't they at 40 and 52 or something? It's probably right in front of me, but
and they traded up to get.
They were at 38 and then 56 is what they were.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. You got to look at the value of where they are, and I just don't think the board really fell that way for them. So that's my biggest thing. But again, I can't really complain about it because I think they address good other positions of need with good players.
Yeah. So. Well, and also too, as much as I harp on how important an offensive line is, that Falcons defense is just atrocious outside of AJ Terrell, and they address some of the cornerback position in free agency, getting Casey Hayward. They could still probably re-sign. They'll probably re-sign Fabian Moreau for another $1 million. But here though, getting Ebiketie, Ebiketie, sorry.
Yeah.
Arnold, if you're watching this, I apologize, but you're not watching this. Let's be honest. Ebiketie and then Anderson. I think are solid
Yeah.
additions to that defensive front. And then who's that? D'Angelo Murray, I think was
Malone,
also.
D'Angelo
Sorry,
Malone. He's a speed rusher. I think he's a little bit smaller. Yeah, he's 245
yeah.
pounds. But he's kind of like a Hassan Reddick type. He's very fast off the edge, plays with very good leverage, and has really good bend. His biggest thing is just he might get overpowered at the next level.
Yeah, well, and that'll come with time. Maybe they can put some meat on him. So the pick, I'm very curious to see the Justin Allgaier. Very curious. Not Justin Allgaier. Tyler Allgaier.
Tyler Algier.
Algier. Sorry, I was watching NASCAR. There's a driver's name was Justin Allgaier. But anyways, Tyler Algier. I'm very curious to kind of see what. I think he can come in and he'll probably contribute day one. They'll probably mix him in because he's going to be a big physical guy, and he's going to, I think, match up really well with Cordell Patterson. I think it's going to be a nice little tandem that they have there. So very curious to kind of see. All in all, I give this draft class a B+ only because of kind of where this will be going. I think a lot of my grades are going to be in that B+ to A- range. And so I think Atlanta be B+. In 2 years, I could change this to an A+. I could change this to a D-. So
I agree with that. I think a B to B+ is good. I think they got really good value for their picks. But up next is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. This was an interesting one. It started out with a trade, one of my least favorite trades, not my least favorite, but trading their first round pick, number 23 overall, to the Baltimore Ravens for Marquise Brown, who, if you remember, 3 years ago was drafted with the 25th overall pick and then has not completed a full season since then.
Yeah. And I think so. Yeah, the injury definitely are some concerns. I will say I think can match up really well with DeAndre Hopkins. Marquise Brown seems like a solid number 2 receiver, and over the past couple of years, he's been the number 1 in Baltimore in a system that's not receiver friendly. If that makes, because they're so focused on the run, they're kind of very improv-y. With how just dynamic Lamar Jackson is. And I think he can honestly do really well, though, in Arizona. For a first-round pick, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe if they thought they were going to already take a receiver and they were like, okay, well, this is what we're going to take anyways. So similar to Philadelphia's mindset, let's get a proven thing. So if that's their mindset, then I understand that. But all in all, though, they did really address the defensive side of the ball. I take that back. They kind of addressed a little bit of everything. And this is a team. Arizona has talent. A lot of their stuff that they've been struggling with, I think, is not issues with on the field play. In my opinion. So I think they added good pieces. It's just going to be can the front office, can the coaching staff take these pieces and make a deep run in the playoff, because they have the talent that's there. I mean, you don't win 7 games in a row just randomly.
They're the only undefeated team after week 5, I think.
Yeah, and they took. I mean, and even with Green Bay, well, even that Green Bay team was COVID stricken. They still had some talent there. So for me, this draft class, I think was fine. I give it a B. But
I'm gonna give it a B-. I don't like the Trey McBride pick. I didn't have any tight ends in the top 2 rounds. This tight end class to me was a little weak. And then
I will say, I know Zach Ertz is getting a little old, but I do find it interesting to take a tight end to go offensive weapons. With essentially your first 2 picks, when there was defensive value on, especially in that second round.
100%. And that's like, I don't like the Marquise Brown trade. I don't really like their second pick. I like Cameron Thomas a lot. I think he's a physical edge. He's kind of a bigger guy. JJ Watt-esque size-wise. He's like 6'3", 6'4", 275, 280. And then Myjah Sanders is kind of the opposite. He was at the combine. Apparently he had the flu and was down to like 226. but apparently his playing weight is probably closer to 250. But he is a lot faster and has good bend. And a few guys I also really like: outside linebacker Jesse Luketa from Penn State, underrated edge rusher, had a good Senior Bowl practice, and then Lashethus Smith and Marquise Hayes are two powerful run blocking guards that I really liked as well. And they actually got really good value, I think, for both of those guys from where they got drafted. So I do like that. I am going to give it a B- though, just because of the first two picks.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And and similar to the Falcons, a couple years from now, we're going to look back on this draft class and especially that trade. Especially, who did Baltimore pick with that 25th pick? Or the 23rd pick?
No, because they ended up trading back with Buffalo, so they picked at 25. Kyle Hamilton and
Tyler Linderbaum.
Yeah,
so watch
Linderbaum.
There's been talk that the Cardinals need that they need offensive line help, especially having a quick, shifty, powerful center would that have worked well within this system with Kyler Murray. So that'll be interesting to evaluate, to kind of see how both those teams progress and both of these players progress.
Through that. And I think it'll be interesting to watch. I think Arizona can compete in that division. However, I think Los Angeles is going to continue to improve and kind of run away with it. What Tampa Bay did this past season is, I think, kind of what will happen to that division. But up next is the Carolina Panthers. And I have very strong mixed feelings about this class. I love the first pick, Akim Ekwonu. I think that is exactly what they needed. Is just an extremely versatile offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And he can play all 5 positions on that line.
So part of me, for when I look at this draft class, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the picks that they had lost, right, were from the Sam Darnold trade.
Yes.
Correct?
I believe so.
If I'm not mistaken, that's why they didn't have a second and a third.
Yeah. They traded back into the third.
Yeah. You're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So
we'll talk about that in a second.
It's interesting to me. Then they trade up, and then they take, after losing those picks, to go get a quarterback. After a year with that quarterback, then they go and take the 4th best quarterback or 5th best quarterback. I just find that interesting, to where maybe they could have gotten some more value somewhere else, knowing that if they tank, and not if they tank, I mean like purposely tank, but if they suck, which is most likely what will happen with this team, or if not, if Sam Darnold comes back and fits well with the system, if Ike Ekwonu is the guy, then they won't need a quarterback. But if they suck, next year's QB class is awesome, and they can go get their franchise quarterback. So that's my one thing. The more I thought about that Matt Corral pick and trading up into that.
Well, it's not even that they traded up for it. It's what they gave up to trade up to that I don't agree with. They gave up a 3rd next year, which in all honesty could be a top 70, top 75 pick. It most likely, if I'm a betting man, it probably will be. And then also too, they gave up a 4th rounder as well with 137. Like, they lost that trade twofold in terms of point value.
Oh, and just they did not have a 2nd and a 4th round pick for this year's draft. They had the 3rd round pick, and then, as you said, they traded up by giving up next year's 3rd round pick to go and get Matt Corral to trade up for him. Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's, for me, is interesting, because then if you look at kind of the rest of it, they did focus on the defensive side. They did get another guard in Cade Mays. And so it'll just be interesting. It's not against Matt Corral. It's more just, for me, the decision to then go after another quarterback after you then traded all those picks for a quarterback who had a horrible offensive line in front of him. Your guy's best player was injured for over half the season. And then the coaching staff, like that whole team just fell apart. Now you guys did go 3-0 to start out the season against, I think, the 3 worst teams in the league. I think it was Jackson. It was Houston.
Jacksonville and Houston were the first 3 games they played.
No, the Jets. They also played the Jets. It wasn't the Giants.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And so that's just where I question some of the decisions. And so we'll see if it pays off. If Matt Corral comes in and is a starting quarterback and they take him to the Super Bowl, then we can eat our words. So that's just where, for me, I question it. I personally, just getting Ike Ekwonu and the way that played out for them, I think that is a checkmark good draft for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah. And then one last thing, I am a big fan of Brandon Smith. He is, in terms of relative athletic score, he's the most athletic linebacker to ever come through the combine. And so I think that's just a good prospect to land there in the 4th round. So I like that pick a lot. But up next is going to be the Chicago Bears. So they do not have a first rounder because they gave up their first rounder last year to trade up for Justin Fields, which I think is definitely worth it, considering the progression that we saw from him throughout the year. What do you take of their draft here? I have a few interesting picks that I would like to talk about.
So for me, just looking at just filling needs, their first 6 picks, I think filled it all in. I think these guys could come in and start day one. With Kyler Gordon, we talked about him a lot at Penn State. Jaquan Brisker, who they picked in just a couple picks later. Velus Jones from Tennessee is the receiver. They need receiver help. I think he's a speedy receiver. I think that can come in and will have an opportunity to succeed on the field. And then getting Braxton Jones from Southern Utah, their offensive tackle, is going to be. It's once again that offensive line is struggling, and they need to protect Justin Fields by all costs. So he's going to have an opportunity to come in and start. I think they got good value for all their positions, for all their picks, as well as also addressing needs. And sacrificing the first round pick this year for Justin Fields, I think is worth it. Especially after all the criticism we gave him going into the season, he definitely improved a lot. By the end of the year.
We got a lot of hate for being Justin Fields haters, and it's not that we didn't like him and we didn't see the potential. We just thought he was the worst of the bunch for the preseason and probably the first half of the season, excluding Trey Lance because he didn't play, obviously. But so I like Kyler Gordon. I like Jaquan Brisker. Those I think address immediate needs. But to me, the Velus Jones pick is a little questionable. He's 25 coming into it. He is a versatile guy, and he's kind of built like a Debo, maybe a little smaller. And he's a good athlete. He doesn't run the best routes. I'm just curious to see how they use him. They spent a top 75 pick on him. So you imagine they expect him to come in and start. So that's an interesting one. And then the Dominique Robinson pick is interesting, not in like a good or bad way. I just think it's interesting. He's only played football for like 2 years. He's kind of a David Ajabo type, but I mean, elite traits in 6'5", extremely long arms, very athletic. Just a few like interesting guys I think that they added to the roster here. And I think it could end up being good pieces. They definitely, I think, dispersed their picks well. Didn't draft a whole lot at the same position. Like the Raiders drafted 4 safeties last year, which made no sense. But
they definitely addressed. I mentioned this already, but they definitely addressed the offensive line as well, using 4 picks, and it's like they're throwing a bunch of darts at the wall and just hoping one of these positions sticks, and then they don't have to worry about it anymore. And I like that strategy as well, especially then after they got good value in the secondary, something that they needed. Early on, as these guys can come in and contribute. Now they keep adding on. Then let's see how many offensive linemen we can get, and hopefully one of these guys, as I said, we'll figure it out. And then drafting a punter, that's always fun. You love to see it.
Yeah. Wasn't the punter you liked, but
no.
We'll see.
The Bill that'll be in the AFC one. I'm pretty sure the Bills draft.
They drafted him.
Yeah, that's an A+ draft for me already.
But up next is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, so I originally was very open because I think a lot of I saw a lot of like the Mel Kipers of the world had Tyler Smith rated pretty high. I think even ESPN had him as 33 overall.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch his tape, he's very athletic, but his technique needs a lot of work. And I actually don't know if he's a plug and play starter.
Well, so for me, when I look at this Dallas team, it reminds me a lot of Arizona. Is a lot of talent on the field on both sides of the ball. The issues are going to be in the front office and the coaching staff area. And so when I look at this draft class,
I said Mike McCarthy specifically.
Mike McCarthy specifically. I like Dan Quinn. All things considered, I think he's a great defensive coordinator. But yeah, so when I look at this class and what the team needed, I don't dislike too many of the picks. I think they could take some flyers on a couple people. And as you said, Tyler Smith, for example, a lot of talent, super athletic. If he needs technique work, that's great. You can hone that in and you can work on that. If he didn't have the athletic ability, but was top-notch technique, I think you can only go so far.
Well, his name would be Andrew Stuber, who was a 6th-round pick by the Patriots.
Yeah,
they're almost like identical. 6'6", 335 versus 6'5", 325. Andrew Stuber's just a stone in the ground, and Tyler Smith is actually really fluid. So to me, that's the biggest difference.
So when it comes to using the hands, when it comes to some of that stuff, especially then also, he is going to have Dan Quinn, one of the better defensive-minded coaches that can coach him on how to kind of go combat this. Like, these are the things that we teach our guys to, and then so here's how you can kind of combat that in case if you face that. So I think he's going to have the ability to learn and to grow because he's huge. His numbers are huge, and then he can come in. If they like what they see in him, he can take the L. Collins spot. I think immediately. If not, there'll be some competition, which will be good for him and good for that team.
Yeah.
And so, but I will say though, they addressed the receiver position. They addressed all the positions. If I'm not mistaken, Randy Gregory's gone. So then with Ole Miss, I think Sam Williams is a solid prospect there.
I like Sam Williams a lot.
They got some solid weapons over the next couple picks, and then they also addressed the offensive line again with their 5th pick. And so, this to me, as I said, reminds me of Arizona, who is going to be. Can the front office make these picks work and find success on the field? Because the issues have not been with the players or the talent that's on the field. There's plenty of talent on this Cowboys team. They should be contending for Super Bowls every year with all the talent that's on their team, but they don't because their coaching sucks.
Yeah. Well, what did they win? 11 games last year?
11 or 12.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
And they should have won more. And Dak Prescott with that run versus the 49ers, they should have won that playoff game.
Yeah.
But Jalen Tolbert is a guy like small school South Alabama. I actually saw him play a couple times in college, going to Georgia Southern in the Sun Belt. Guy is massive. I don't know if the film really does justice how big this guy is, but he is probably DK Metcalf size. Not quite that big, but close.
Well, honestly, that's going to go really well then with CeeDee Lamb on the other side.
Yeah.
Your speedy gadget can do it all guy.
Speedy
CeeDee. And then, then if you just have a big behemoth on the other side of the ball, it's going to provide a lot of good options.
Yeah. And then I like Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin, underrated tight end prospect, a nasty blocker. And then Damone Clark, he had to have spinal fusion surgery and is going to miss this whole year. But if he can come back and be the tackler that he was at LSU, where he had like a 4% missed tackle rate or something crazy, that would be a cornerstone in the middle of that defense as well. And then John Ridgway is a guy I wanted the Patriots to target, 6'6", 330 nose tackle. He's just a run stuffing monster. So I think they had a good draft. My biggest issue is I just think Tyler Smith was taken a little high. So
yeah.
So yeah. All right. Up next, Ooh, the Detroit Lions, the number 1 overall pick. Or sorry, not number 2 overall pick. Getting the number 1 overall player in Aiden Hutchinson.
That's the pick that doesn't excite me. I mean, like you expect it. I like them going after Jameson Williams. I like that they were aggressive. They took that and they didn't trade up to go get a quarterback. They went up. And this is going to be the guy, especially if they hit, because Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, almost had 1,000 yards last year, and that was after he started off really slow. He's going to come in. He's going to be someone that they have to deal with. And if Jameson Williams can come back healthy and have the speed and the agility that he can have, look out, man, because that offense, you have TJ Hawkinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and then you have DeAndre Swift in the backfield. And I mean, I know we can easily all knock on Jared Goff just because, but offense,
the man has thrown for 40 touchdowns in a season. Like, you can't knock on him too much.
I mean, he's not horrible. He was just the guy that the Rams traded to get Matt Stafford, and then they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, so like he
took that team to a Super Bowl once.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Absolutely. So, and arguably the most boring Super Bowl of all time. So
I don't even know if it's an argument.
Maybe when Seattle beat Denver, because it was such a blowout. It was awful.
Yeah.
But it's up there. Anyways, though, I like the Josh Pascal's pick, and I like the safety Kirby, the safety Kirby Joseph pick. I think they addressed a lot of needs and got a lot of good value. For these picks.
No. I agree. I like what they did from round 1 to round 7. Chase Lucas was a good cornerback out of Arizona State. People thought he was better than Jack Jones, who the Patriots took at 121. Malcolm Rodriguez is like Nakobe Dean light. He's kind of this extremely good coverage linebacker that plays really well downhill, even though he's like 5'11", 225. James Mitchell was a tight end that not a lot of people know about because he was hurt all of last year. And it was extremely productive when he's been on the field. Kirby Joseph has elite length, 99th percentile length, and good ball skills. And Josh Pascal had the best run defense grade of any edge defender last year in the SEC. So, like, they added a lot of good players. So I think that I said this on draft night, and I still somewhat stand by it. I think I could envision a world where Detroit is good enough to compete for the division this year. I really think that with the players that they added, if Jameson Williams can come back and be healthy, Jeff Okuda is coming back from injury, Aiden Hutchinson is a plug-and-play starter. Like, I think that they are a potential double-digit win team.
Maybe they would have to have. I know we compared them a lot to the Bengals as well. The only issue though with the Bengals is when they got Jamar Chase, they already had 2,000-yard receivers. Joe Mixon was still one of the, I would say, top 7 running backs in the league, and Joe Burrow was a much better quarterback than Jared Goff. No offense to Jared Goff. I know we were just complimenting him. But so, and then when they turn around, then is Aiden Hutchinson going to be their Trey Hendrickson? Like, I just don't see it immediately. Maybe he can turn into that guy.
Yeah.
But I think this year the Lions are going to improve.
Though, for Aiden Hutchinson to come in and have a Chase Young effect on that defense.
Say it again.
Is it unrealistic for Aiden Hutchinson to come in and have and not be Trey Hendrickson, but be Chase Young?
No, it's not unrealistic that could happen. But we are. Chase, I think, was more dominant in college than Aiden Hutchinson was. So I mean, like him coming into the NFL. I mean, you knew Chase Young was going to be great. With Aiden Hutchinson, he is a workhorse. He is strong. He is big. But, I mean, there is still some question marks to Aiden Hutchinson. But Chase Young, let's put it this way.
Question marks, but there are.
If Aiden Hutchinson doesn't work out, I could see it. If Chase Young doesn't work out, which I think he has, if he just can stay healthy, I know he just tore his ACL this year.
Yeah,
I would have been shocked because Chase Young was just that type of talent. I mean, he was that good. He was that good.
I view Aiden Hutchinson that way. Aiden Hutchinson dominated every tackle that he went against,
against Georgia's tackles.
Well, when he got one-on-one matchups, he played really well, but they hardly ever gave him a one-on-one matchup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they would always chip him and do that. And in the NFL, schematically, it's going to be really hard to isolate one guy like that, especially on a defense that is going to have Josh Pascal on the other side. So, I think it is not unrealistic to see Detroit getting close to 10 wins. I think they could have had a lot more wins this year. They just got unlucky a few times. And so I am interested to see how Detroit does. I'm going to give this grade an A. This is one of my top 5 drafts in the NFL this year.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to rag on Aiden Hutchinson.
Oh no,
I'm just saying, but I don't buy that they can come in and then potentially win the division. I think the Bengals were more established, or had more pieces in place than the Lions do right now. Lions have some pieces on offense that aren't in place, and they added a piece in Jameson Williams, who we need to see how that piece does. When the Bengals came, the Bengals didn't add Jamar Chase, which I mean, they clearly should have it done, and it worked out for them.
Yeah.
That team still could have potentially made the playoffs and won that division without Jamar Chase, because there are still a lot of good dynamic pieces with T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, CJ Uzoma, and then Joe Mixon as well. Then you have Joe Burrow at the helm. Now,
I mean,
they might have found their Jamar Chase and Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
But then there's still now a bunch more question marks on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, some. I think it is comparable. I agree. Mm-hmm. The Bengals were more likely to do it than the Lions are. But mm-hmm. I just don't think it's unrealistic to see Detroit in the 10-win column. So
it's fair. I don't think they can win the division, but they can definitely fight for that wild card spot just because the NFC is garbage.
Yeah. But up next, staying in the division, we're going to do the Green Bay Packers. This one,
I personally like it.
I do and I don't. Like, I like all the players. I just thought Quay Walker was a middle day 2 guy. I like Devontae Wyatt. I think he was a day 1 guy. Christian Watson is extremely nice on paper, and he has a really nice highlight reel. However, the man has like a 12% drop rate. And if there's one thing that correlates to the NFL better than any other statistic, it is drops. Mm-hmm. So that's my biggest concern. But I mean, they finally got Aaron Rodgers a weapon, so that's.
Yeah, I do like the Romeo Doubs pick as well. They got him another weapon. Yeah. I mean, I know they got technically a third one with their last pick, but then I think
I've never
between
heard of
those.
Guy.
Oh no, I hadn't either. I have no idea. So maybe special teams. I have no idea. But then also I know Sean Ryan from UCLA. There, I think that's good value for him there.
Yeah, I actually like Rasheed Walker from Penn State in round 7 as well. Mm-hmm. I think that's good value.
So I personally like it. I mean, that Georgia defense was absolutely stellar. There was a lot of talent, and they got two starters from the defensive from the Georgia defense, and they really need some help. Not going like I mean this in all seriousness. When I was talking about that punter Matt Ariza, I immediately thought of the Packers because they need special teams help. That's what cost them the Super Bowl essentially. Because I think they definitely beat the Bengals. I think they beat the Rams for sure in Green Bay. And he was available there in some of these late picks. I think I'm being serious. I know it sounds weird, but with everything else, though, they have all the talent that's there. They did need some receivers, and they addressed that position. We'll have to kind of see how they move forward. But one of the things I will say, with how smart Matt LaFleur is, how elite Aaron Rodgers is. We saw it against that in that Arizona game where Aaron Rodgers threw for only 175 yards, but I think he had 2 or 3 touchdowns, and they just played small ball all the way up the field. And if that's how they're going to do it and just beat these teams with the war of attrition, because if I'm not mistaken, they didn't have Devontae Adams, they didn't have Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I think Alan Lazard led the way.
Alan Lazard. They didn't know.
They didn't have Alan Lazard either. And then Robert Tonyan, I think, tore his ACL in that game halfway through. So they were able to put up 24 points, and they were able to just grind the Cardinals defense down. And if they can do it, I mean, they have this one of the smartest offensive minds. It's not going to look sexy, but that being said, though, I still see them winning that division. Because the Bears are still kind of in a rebuild. I mean, maybe they can bounce back a little bit and fight for a wild card. Minnesota, I think Minnesota is going to be the closest one. I think that could take them, but they're going through a regime change as well. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see what they bring to the table. But for me, though, I think the Packers address that defensive side and they address the receiver position as well with some decent talent.
Yeah, and I really didn't think that they had to address the defense nearly as much as they did. But I like all the pieces they got. Again, I just thought Quay Walker was a middle day 2 guy. And also they got really good value for me with Kingsley and Agbari from South Carolina down there in round 5 in the compensatory picks of round 5. He was one of the highest graded pass rushers in the SEC over the last 2 years. And they got him practically in the 6th round. So that's crazy value for me. So I think that they came away with good players. I'm a little concerned about some of the weapons they may have gotten. Romeo Doubs is a good.
I'll say they really don't mind double dipping, do they? 3 linebackers, 3 offensive tackles, 3 receivers, and then 2 defensive tackles.
3 offensive tackles.
Yeah, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, and then Rasheed Walker out of Penn State.
Well, Ryan and Tom are guards in the NFL. Rasheed Walker is more of a tackle. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, you solidify the interior of that offensive line. 2 inside linebackers. They didn't really need one because they have he was a Pro Bowler.
Devondre Campbell.
Yeah, Devondre Campbell. So I guess depth pieces. So I think they came away with good pieces. And I'll give this draft a B+ to A-. I think they did pretty well. So
yeah, I'm gonna go a little higher. I don't know, maybe just because I like that Georgia defense, but I'm gonna go with an A. There's not too much. They traded away Devontae Adams, yes, but I don't think that they were going to be able to pay him or had the space to pay him, so they got a 1st-round pick out of it. At least
they got multiple, actually.
That's a good point. I'd have to go in and double check that. So, but I mean, only time will tell. Who knows? I think they're in a good advantage where I don't think they're really threatened for the division. So really beefing up that defense and probably playing that small ball is going to be the route that they go.
Yeah. Up next is going to be the Super Bowl champions, who did not have their first pick until pick 104.
Yeah, and so for me, it was tough for them because I know they were really looking at wanting to address the offensive line, but for them, their top pick, Cole Strange, was already off the board. Yeah. He was taking a couple picks before then. Yeah. So I think that was kind of a dip in the value that they could have gotten because he was taken. When was Cole Strange taken again?
29.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Wow, that high. Wow. Okay, interesting. Who picked him again?
The Patriots did. I've kind of I've come to terms with it, but 2, I really like the player. He's a good guy, extremely physical, plays very aggressive. It's just you took a guard in the 1st round. That's my biggest thing with it. You could have traded back 8 spots with the Jets. They could have taken what was it? The running back from Iowa State in the 1st round, acquired another pick, and then they could have taken Cole Strange there. Like I just think that's.
I just like talking about it.
Yeah, but they ended up getting Logan Bruss here. Pretty similar. They're both 6'5" and 309 pounds. So Bruss is not nearly the athlete that Cole Strange was, but good player. Jacoby Durant, the South Carolina State corner, tested out really well at the combine. A little undersized, probably going to play in the slot. Kyron Williams, the best receiving back in the class. And then just a few other kind of pieces. Not a lot of guys I really heard a lot of. Darion Kendrick is the only one, and that was I've only heard his name in pursuit of Jamison Williams. So,
yeah, I mean, when you're Super Bowl champs and then you trade for all the guys that you got, I mean, they're just the best player available mode. I mean, for me, I mean, I give this draft an A+++ because you got exactly what you're looking for by giving up all those picks. You got the Super Bowl, and you still have a couple of those guys around for a little bit. And so, I agree with you. When your first picks over 100, it's best player available mode, and I do like the diversity in kind of some of the picks that they had. They did address the secondary, and so that was mainly in the seventh round. The seventh or sixth round, I kind of forget where the 211, 212 picks are, but
six?
But yeah, sixth pick. Okay. Yeah. So four picks going to the secondary. I think they're best player available mode. We'll have to see. I hope some of those guys can come in and assist. One of those guys lands and then is able to pick up on Jalen Ramsey or help assist Jalen Ramsey on the other side of the ball, then defense could be even more dangerous.
Yeah.
So.
But there's really not a whole lot to break down here. I mean, it's a lot of day 3 guys that like have good traits, but it's hard to evaluate. Because these are all kind of shots in the dark. Mm-hmm. So getting on to the Minnesota Vikings here. This was my least favorite trade of the draft for the Minnesota Vikings.
So
they fleeced themselves out of a top 15 pick. I don't know how they did it, but
so especially to your division rival, someone you're going to be competing against, you might have to see James Williams twice now. Maybe they thought, but my only reason why would you go back 20 picks and essentially only getting an extra second pick or a second round pick? Because they traded third round.
It was pick 66. They only really got 66 because they swapped.
Oh yeah, because they got 32 picks. They got 32 and 34, and then they got a.
No, they didn't get 32 and 34. They just got.
No, they did get 32 and 34. They traded back from 34 with the team. I forgot which team. I forgot who they traded up with, but they traded back to number 42 because they did get another pick. But that's my thing. They only got one extra pick from this, but they went back 20 spots. And so they did address some they addressed the secondary, and so you could make an argument from where they're at 12. The value at 12 was pretty similar to then the value that was going to be at 32. Which they got Lewis signed, and they got Andrew Booth, two guys who had a lot of value and a lot of hype coming at the start of the drafting process.
Yeah.
But for me though, it's just a weird trade to division rival going back 20 spots when they could have addressed a lot of other positions. Kyle Hamilton was still there, arguably the best safety in the class.
Johnson was there, who I thought was
Jermaine
a perfect
Johnson.
fit.
Yeah, Trent McDuffie was also still there. And then they could have addressed the offensive line. They could have addressed some of the other receiver positions. I know that was a talk that maybe they address. They get Chris Olave. Well, no, Chris Olave was gone by then. They could have gotten James Williams to then go along. Imagine that, Justin Jefferson and James Williams on the same field. That would be absolutely insane. So this is going to be very interesting. I remember when this happened. that they would be kind of shocked. Maybe part of me kind of wonders. Maybe I'd be curious to think if they thought like when they offer this trade, be like, oh, you're going to take one of these quarterbacks? Go ahead, take it. These guys suck. We would love to play against this quarterback for the next 5 years.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
And so, but then they end up taking Jameson Williams, and I wonder if the Vikings might have played that wrong, or and so just and who they thought the Lions were going to pick.
Yeah, but I think they got good players. I'm not super high on Ed Ingram. He had some weight issues down at LSU. Asamoah had one good year of production at Oklahoma, and then he had 3 below average years before that. Caleb Evans is a guy who's tested out well, but he has some holes on his tape. So there's a few guys on here that I question why they were taken where they were. But Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth Jr. I think are both day one starters. And maybe if a few of these other guys can stick, then I think that they'll do pretty well. So
yeah. Well, especially too, and with all the criticism that we just gave for the trade, the 2 picks that they did end up getting from that trade, I agree with you. I mean, they needed to address the secondary badly. That was their number one need, in my opinion. Yeah. And as you said, they get 2 day one starters that they can start building up that defense.
Yeah. So I guess mission somewhat accomplished. I can't believe you make that trade with the division rival. And for that, I'm going to give their draft a B-. So
I'd probably give it about the same.
So. But then up next are the Falcons division rivals. We have actually already talked about this in our favorite and least favorite draft videos. And not to give it away if you want to go check it out. But this was also one of my least favorite drafts of the class.
This one's probably my favorite draft. It's just, for me, the biggest thing, and I agree, I still question, you're in salary cap hell. You're not really sure who your starting quarterback is, not really sure where, like, you need help on the offensive line, which they did address with Trevor Penning, and I like that pick.
Yeah.
But then your defense is getting old. They're still really good, but they are getting old. And then you trade up a lot of picks just to go up 5, and then arguably not take the best receiver off the board when they could have had Jameson Williams, who I think – well, and yeah, he had the ACL tear, yes, and so, but nothing wrong with Chris Olave. But it's very interesting for me when then there's still going to be a receiver that's there on the board. There's still going to be. I mean, Washington took Jahan Dotson at 16. They could go and get a receiver with this 49th pick, or if traded up in the early second round, go get a Christian Watson or go get a Sky Moore, and give up a lot less draft capital. So for me, that's where I just question some of their picks, especially after they already gave up a first round for next year.
So to break it down for our listeners, the Eagles traded the number 16th overall pick, traded the number 16th overall pick, the number 19th overall pick, and a 2022 6th round pick to the New Orleans Saints for pick number 18. A 2022 third round pick, a 2022 7th round pick, a 2023 first round pick, and then a 2024 second round pick. So if you add all of that up, the Saints, in theory, traded 5 picks to get Chris Olave.
Yeah.
So for me, that is a miss. If you're at 11 and you really like Chris Olave, I think that's a bit of a reach. I think he's a back half of the first round guy, and you took him in the first half. But whatever. That's your opinion, and that's the guy you really like, and you think he fits your system. But to give up 5 picks when you said, you're in salary cap hell, that is atrocious negligence of the situation that you are in. And I just think that is horrible management, and that is why I think the Saints are going to be picking. I guess the Eagles are going to be picking top 5 next year, because I just think the Saints are not going to be good.
No, the Saints are going to have an early round pick. it helps that they're in a weak
Yeah.
division and they get to go against the Falcons and the Panthers twice. But
Yeah.
they're not going to be good. They're
Mhm.
going to be playing the second best team in the corresponding divisions of who they have to play throughout the year. So it's going to be a tougher schedule than normal, and it's not like it's just, is Chris Olave going to be worth those 5 players then that are picked?
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to come back to this pick after next year's draft and see who do the Saints give up for.
If he turns out to be a Michael Thomas, then maybe. But he's just not that. He's not that type of receiver. I think at best he's a 1B. Like he'll never be a DeAndre Hopkins type guy.
Yeah. But another thing though I will say is if he turns out to Michael Thomas, that's great.
Well, production wise, like
but the Saints need so much more though than like it's not like they're one receiver away from like you can make an argument Green Bay is a Michael Thomas away from Super Bowl champions because the Packers have everything else. But the Saints are not. The Saints are absolutely not. They're not going to win the division. The Buccaneers, even though they've beaten the Bucs the past 4 times that they played in the regular season. That was with Sean Payton as coach, and so he's one of the best offensive mind or best coaching minds that we've ever seen, and he's able to game plan against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Yeah. We don't know if that's going to be the case now. We don't know who's going to be coming in, and so for me, then to give up these 5 picks just for Chris Olave, I don't know. It's just we're just going to see how that plays out essentially. So that's for me. Their whole draft. Some of the other picks, sure, whatever.
Alontae Taylor was a late day 2, early day 3 guy. They took him in the middle of the 2nd round, and then they didn't have a pick until middle of the 5th round and middle of the 6th round, and then they only got 5 guys. And like you said, again, they needed a whole slew of people. Yeah. So I just think that it was a swing and a miss for that reason alone for the Saints. I actually am going to give this a worse grade than what I gave the Patriots. And I'm going to give this a C-. So
I think that's fair. I give it an A+ personally. So
from a competitor
standpoint. I don't think that they set themselves up. That to me, those moves they made is like we're in a win now mode, and you are not in a win now team. You couldn't even make the playoffs with the current iteration of the team that you have with the NFC, which is super weak. So, but moving on though to one of the better drafts, in my opinion, I really do like the New York Giants draft here. How it's for them, like it could not have played out more perfect for them. Kayvon Thibodeau falling down to him. It's one of the most athletic guys that in this draft class here. A lot of raw talent. If they're able, I know there's questions about his motivation and everything. Don't know how true that is or not, but if that's able to be squashed and he's able to come out from day one, that's awesome. And then they get arguably the best offensive lineman in this class. People at the beginning of the whole draft process, they were thinking he's going to go number 1 overall. They got him at 7. So that alone to me right there, they addressed some huge needs. And as well, Wan'Dale Robinson was a lot of people's sleeper picks, dark horse picks that could turn out really well from Kentucky. So for me, I honestly think those first 3 picks of them, I think all those guys are going to contribute day 1. So you're sitting there, I feel like you get a little smirk on your face. What are your thoughts on this?
I don't like this draft.
You don't like this draft?
I like the first 2 picks.
Okay.
Wan'Dale Robinson is a gadget guy. He is going to struggle with injury issues because he's so small. He's a day 3 pick. Joshua Ezeudu from North Carolina played on the worst offensive line in the ACC. I don't know why he was ranked this why he was even considered to be this good. In the 3rd round conversation. I think Cole, again, not to keep bringing up the Patriots, but I think Cole Strange is closer to being a 3rd round pick or a 1st round pick than Joshua Ezeudu is to being a 3rd round pick.
Okay.
He did absolutely nothing at North Carolina, and I don't know. Cordell Flott, I like as a round 4, late round 4 pick. He's just really undersized, and he's probably going to be constricted to playing in the slot at the next level. After that, I don't really know a whole lot. I know Daniel Bellinger. There could have been better tight end prospects on the board, like Jake Ferguson from Wisconsin.
Mhm.
I like the Darian Beavers pick in round 6, their very last pick. He's like a traditional Sam linebacker, like a strong
Mhm.
side, like heavy hitter. But he has speed concerns at the next level. So it like,
You got to mention Mika McFadden from Indiana,
do I?
from the Hoosiers.
I mean, he
Absolutely,
was a
and the
good
family.
he was a good college player, but even
Yeah,
then,
no, I
it's
know
like,
he's right. His thing is he is a little undersized.
yeah,
Um,
and he's kind of slow.
he gave me Luke Kuechly vibes minus the elite linebacker talent.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's fair. So what it sounds like, if I like, they reached for a lot of their picks outside of their first 2 picks.
Yeah, and like I get that they like wanted to add players that fit their system and do things kind of their own way, but I'm going to say this for a lot of teams that I don't think drafted well. You have to pay attention to where players are going off the board on the consensus pick. Like Wan'Dale Robinson was a consensus 4th round pick, and they took him like 80 spots ahead of where he was projected to go.
Well, yeah, but
So
it's the one thing with
let
the
me.
consensus though,
Oh,
and
I
it's
guess 80 overall. So
yeah.
50 spots ahead of where he's supposed to go. So like,
Well, yeah, but you could say that though about if you want to judge every pick based off the consensus pick, then like Trayvon Walker then would have been picked in the late teens or late 20s. It's
he was a consensus top 5 guy at the end. He went up.
well, yeah. Well, I think it
Yeah.
was top 5 because I think everyone realized like,
Yeah.
oh, Jacksonville might be taking him. There's rumors going around that Jacksonville might be taking him number 1. So
Yeah.
this is where, to me, I think if they're going based off the value of it, I like every single spot. They addressed the offensive line twice,
Yeah.
their first 4 picks. Then they addressed the secondary as well, and they beefed up the front, defensive front with Kayvon Thibodeau, who's going to come in day 1. I think he's could change, help make that defense front even more elite. And then adding Evan Neal and then Josh Azuda, if their scouting is correct, and then if they're able to train these guys properly, could really help give Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley some sort of foundation up front. So, and this kind of goes, it's funny seeing how we're saying this. It kind of goes back to then what people thought of this draft class was there's not anyone that really sticks out, and everyone's going to have an opinion on a certain player. I like the approach that they had with them, like addressing some key needs with, I think, some solid talent. So we'll just kind of have to see if this plays out for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like their first 2 picks. I think they got good value, even with DJ Davidson and Darian Beavers. But I think they just kind of missed the mark on some of their other picks. Like Calvin Austin was a guy. Wait, what?
Yeah. Some of their middle round picks.
Yeah, some of their middle round picks. Like Calvin Austin, the 3rd out of Memphis, I thought was better than Wan'Dale Robinson. And Calvin Austin went in like the 140s. And so I guess I'm in the minority based off of the way teams picked, but it is what it is. So
no, yeah. Well, that goes. You're going to have a different opinion on some players than than what the GMs for Kentucky, not Kentucky,
the Giants.
The Giants have,
yeah.
And so, it'll go back. I think that if their scouting is correct, I think that they could have definitely changed their draft class here. So I personally, I give them an A. A lot of it just to kind of also has to go kind of with their how those first 2 picks went, and then I think I personally they added good value.
And I'm gonna give them a B-. I just think I really like what they did in the first couple rounds. Maybe I'll give them a B. B- might be a little harsh.
Okay.
But I like Wan'Dale Robinson taken 2 rounds ahead of where I thought he would. Joshua Azudu taken 3 or 4 rounds ahead of where I thought he would. Cordell Flott taken a round ahead of where I thought he was. And so to me, 3 out of their top 5 just don't meet that mark. And so I'll give them a B. But up next, we're going to stay in the NFC East with the Philadelphia Eagles. So going from one of my least favorite to one of my favorite, I think they annihilated this draft.
Well, I'm trying to remember. Were they in our
They were, yeah,
best of work? Yeah, because it was them and then the Jets, correct?
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, this one, I mean, they absolutely crushed it, and similar to one, you have to talk about the trade. I mean, that I think to me is how similar to I think the Cardinals
oh yeah.
mindset on let's get Marquise Brown like a sure thing instead of picking a receiver here who we don't know if he's going to work out. I
Let's
mean,
let
getting AJ
yeah
Brown. Oh my gosh.
for
Oh my god. For just a it was just a first round pick. That's all it
in
was.
no, it was 18 and 101.
Oh, fine. Take it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For AJ Brown. AJ freaking Brown. This is going to be who is licking his chops right now is going to be Jalen Hurts because now he knows like this is the opportunity for the team because if he doesn't perform well this year, the Eagles now have 2 first round picks for next year, and they will
Yeah.
gladly give up both of those picks to go get Bryce Young, to go get CJ Stroud, to go get an elite quarterback. So the Eagles are in a prime position right now to excel over the next decade. I mean,
Oh yeah.
with the past couple of draft classes that they've had, the talent that they've acquired, that running game is only going to stay awesome. I mean, I think what do
Yeah.
they average 150 yards running per game.
They had what was it like a 15-yard lead over like number 2,
Yeah,
the number 2 running offense,
I
which was
think that
just
was the
nuts.
Colts. I think it was the Colts and the
Yeah.
Titans.
And who
Like,
like if people remember, Jonathan Taylor in the second half of the season was averaging like 140 yards and a touchdown and a half a game.
oh yeah,
Like,
he was on my fantasy team. That was nice. That
yeah,
was very
yeah.
nice.
And so that's just like it. I know they only got 5 picks, but they really got 6. They added a first rounder for next year with the trade with the Saints.
Mhm.
Like I just think they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
I don't see how it gets much better. You added 2 Georgia defenders on the best defense in college football history.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, and
and
one too, and one. So taking the Kobe Dean, everyone knows obviously about his knee
yeah,
issues with it was the cartilage. Yeah, he had no cartilage.
yeah,
So
it's similar to what Todd Gurley was suffering.
yeah,
I have a few friends that go to Georgia, and granted it's hearsay. Apparently his knee's pretty bad.
yeah.
So
Objection. That's hearsay.
yeah, yeah. All right, Amber Heard.
That's an Amber Heard Johnny
Yeah.
Depp joke for all of our
Uh,
listeners out there.
but no, like I heard it's pretty bad. And so, but like even if he has to take a whole year off, I think he comes back and you have top 10 middle
Well,
linebacker. Like
and let's put it this way: how many third round busts do you remember?
none.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you take a flyer on a guy that has top 15 draft talent, 83rd overall, and if he doesn't pan out, whatever. All
Yeah,
right, that's fine.
exactly. Like
You
that's
know what I
fine.
mean?
Yeah.
So,
I think this draft, they took him in the 3rd round. This draft is going to be how dominant is Jordan Davis and how big of an impact is AJ Brown going to have.
mhm,
And then that'll carry them into next year.
yeah. And for me, just one final note. Also, then getting that center Cam Jurgens,
Yeah.
who is Jason Kelsey esque.
Yeah.
I think he's going to fit in seamlessly with this team. I don't see them stopping anytime soon. Now I mean, it's just amazing. You have Miles Sanders in the backfield, and then whoever else. I mean, they were able to make it all work because Miles Sanders was hurt for some time last year. You got Devontae Smith, who's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver for sure if he stays healthy this year. Dallas Goedert, who's going to be your receiving tight end, and then you have AJ Brown on the other side, and then you still have some other weapon who's like a good third receiver, Quiz Watkins, and then you still have Jalen Reagor as well. I mean, like a lot of talent in that receiving room. I mean, that's going to be a team to watch. And
2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. I forget when Quez Watkins was drafted, but he was drafted last year. So
I'm trying to remember.
It might have been a later guy, but anyways,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, a lot of talent, and I think that defense. I mean, it's pretty good. It'll be pretty good. So, up next we're going to go over to the West Coast with Seattle. First round, I think went really well for them. I really like Charles Cross. I think he's the best pure left tackle from this class. I don't think he can really succeed anywhere else. Well, he could. You just have to learn a whole new position. And I think he fell to them because of the lack of versatility. And I mean,
Yeah.
they're coming for you, Tyler.
Oh, can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we better hurry this up.
Yeah. But I think that's a perfect fit. I like his game. He's very physical, gets out well in the run game, good long arms for pass protection. So I like that pick there. And then they addressed it a little bit later with Abraham Lucas with another tackle pick. So I think they did a good job here.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it was controversial it's always controversial to trade your franchise quarterback. As a Falcons fan, I know. But it's similar to the Falcons. I think Seattle trading Russell Wilson was the right thing to do. They have made some horrible front office decisions and put themselves in a bind of getting some top talent, and it's time to just rip the Band-Aid off, start the rebuild. And going Charles Croft, Boye Mafe, Kenneth Walker III, and then Abraham Lucas. And shoot, even Kobe Bryant as well. I mean, their first 5 picks can come in day one and contribute and be starters. Kobe Bryant, he was on the other side of Ahmad Gardner, and so no one really talks about him nearly as much because Ahmad Gardner was amazing. And so,
they're clearly going to be playing more zone schemes. I think they're going to allow Jamal Adams to play a lot more down in the box. And then Tariq Woolen also, I think, is a day one starter. 6'4", ran a 4.31 or like a 4.29, 40, like something crazy fast. And then Tyreek Smith out of Ohio State, good solid pass rusher. And to me, like, I don't know a lot about Derek Young, but I do love Bo Melton's tape. 4.34 speed. It shows up really well on tape. He's a good runner. He's a little undersized and is going to have to play in the slot, but I mean, shoot, you got Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, now Bo Melton. I think they did a good job here, and this is the first. So I looked at this draft before, but this is the first time I'm really breaking down a lot of the picks that they made, and I actually think they did really well. One of the more underrated drafts, I feel like, or less talked about.
Well, because I think that when a team's it is in a clear rebuild, but not picking in the top 5. I don't think it gets as much attention. Picking 9th, then like Seattle just kind of been coasting along. I feel like these past couple years, and we called it last year how Seattle wasn't really going to be good. Ooh, excuse me, sorry.
We did call that. So I just want to say to all the Seahawks fans out there, suck it.
Yeah, I did like some of those comments that were saying that. Who was it? Like San Francisco is going to be like San Francisco is going to be better than Seattle? Question mark. They haven't beat us in Seattle in years. I'm like, yeah, but there's still 16 other games that they have to play, so I don't think they're going to do that well. And it was just, and it's a hard pill to swallow. As
not for
Falcons,
us, but
yeah, well, yeah, I don't know, but those people out in Seattle, they're a little, but anyways, the Seahawks, they're in a pure rebuild here at this point. I am curious though why, and it's their last 2 picks. It's late 7th round, so maybe they get some special teams help or maybe adding some depth in the receiver. But when you have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, it's just interesting to kind of go with 2 receivers. But it's not, at the same time though. I guess you're trying to find value to some other positions when you're that late in the draft. Maybe I'm just being picky now, but I do agree with you though. All in all, I think that this was a good draft. I give it a B+. I kind of, as I said earlier, sticking in that range just because we'll have to see how these guys kind of pan out.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go with an A- here. I like what they did. I think Bo Melton is an extremely underrated prospect. Speed kills, and it can make up for a lot of the stuff in his game that may not be at the top level, and it can allow him to get on the field and learn. I think Tyreek Smith is another underrated prospect that can really get after a quarterback and play well against the run. And I think they beefed up their offensive line a little. So let's stick in this division and talk about the team who apparently has never beat Seattle in Seattle. The San Francisco 49ers. They did not have a first round pick because they traded that last year to go up and get Trey Lance, and the jury is still out on that pick. However, I have heard rumblings that the coaching staff is unimpressed with his development. So you heard it here first.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. They gave up a lot to go get him. So that's where we'll judge that draft and that pick here in a little in a little bit. Who do they trade with again to go up to Miami, right?
Yes. And then Miami traded with Philadelphia to get back up to 6 to draft Jalen Waddle, but they did that before the draft. So
yeah, that's true. So then who would have ended up then with their pick? Did the Eagles get Devontae Smith? Is that who that pick was?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So the 49ers could have been in that spot to get Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. See how that plays out. Anyways, though, but still had Jimmy G.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, that would have been really interesting. Devontae Smith, Deebo Samuel combo. Then with George Kitts. Yeah. No.
Oh, yeah.
Is that his last name? George Kitts? No.
Kittle.
That's it. Okay.
Oh, I thought you were just saying that as a joke.
No. I was being. Oh man, that's a pretty dynamic trio right there.
Yeah, no, that would have been great.
Smith, Deebo
they
Samuel,
had to have Trey Lance.
That's crazy. That's going to come back to bite them.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, who knows? We're early on that. So, but with this draft, semifinalists of last season. Still a lot of talent there. Kyle Shanahan, still one of the best offensive minds in the league. They're able to take that whole draft class. It is interesting that they went
really
kind of offensive minded on with their 3 of their first 4 picks. Well, I get offensive tackle. I always like adding depth there, but I would have thought that they would have gone more defensive. But I guess they probably figured that there weren't too many holes, and I guess there's not too many holes on their teams. So going best player available. It looks like to me the route that they went.
Yeah, I don't really understand this draft. You break down these drafts like with a quick brief before we do these videos, and I remember looking like, oh, they got Danny Gray, Drake Jackson, those are good guys. Tree Castro Fields, but like Tyrion Davis Price, I very little research before the draft. He was not on a lot of people's top running backs draft boards. Danny Gray, I thought was going to be a day 3 pick, like a second half of day 3 pick, because he's a speed guy, but it's kind of like a budget Marquise Brown. Spencer Burford, Samuel Womack, Nick Zakelj. I've never heard of any of those guys. So I can't really evaluate that. I just I don't know. I don't really know how to evaluate it because I don't know a lot of these guys.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. And another thing too, and I guess it's similar to Los Angeles though. Like when you make it so far in the playoffs, you have. Well, I take that back because with Cincinnati, there's a clear theme, but there's normally a theme. I feel like to the draft.
Yeah.
And with this one, similar to the Rams, I would say, it seems like they're just kind of bouncing around. We'll have to kind of see. I'm going to lean towards a B minus, just
that's
on
what
its
I was going to say.
Only just because, and that could easily change to an A minus if Trey Lance pans out and is the quarterback that they think he could be. But then if it's not, then to give up a first round pick in this in any draft class is going to hurt. But that being said, though, they still had a lot of picks and they addressed a lot of different parts of the team. So, yeah, I feel like I just can't add too much value here because I don't know too much. It just all kind of just a little inconsistent.
And it just I guess this is what happens when you take best player available, or you think you take best player available, but it just looks random. Like you said, there's not really a theme. I'm not a big fan of it. don't really know like how they got better. I think they might have got good players, but I don't know if the team really improved all that much.
Yeah. What is the status? Right? Is Jimmy G still on the team? Are they going to be
Yeah,
going
he
with?
is.
Are they rolling out with Trey Lance?
Yeah, so teams wouldn't trade with them because I think Jimmy G had shoulder surgery in the offseason.
Yeah.
Say that 10 times fast. And so I don't think a lot of teams are really willing to negotiate picks with the 49ers because they were like, well, we want to see Jimmy G's physical yet. And they're like, well, he's still in rehab. And then
Well,
type of deal.
and another thing too, they don't really have much leverage because then also what's
the
difference between Jimmy?
Oh, you there? May have lost Tyler.
The road quarterbacks.
You there? Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah. Sorry, you just kind of disconnected there for a second.
Oh, okay.
I don't. Sorry, I don't. To answer your question, I don't think that they're. Well, let me answer the question I think you asked. I don't think that there's a big difference between Jimmy G and a lot of those like middle of the road guys. Like, for example, a Jared Goff. Like, I don't think that there's a big difference there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So, let's get on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 2022 NFC South Division winner.
So this one's similar, I will say, to me personally with the 49ers.
Yeah.
They did address some clear need, like they did address the defensive line because I think that's going to be an issue here for them just because guys are going to be retiring or leaving to free agency.
Mm-hmm.
Then they did also then address the offensive guard position because Ted Karras, is that his name?
Oh, well, he went to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Well, he was on the Patriots.
Who was the Buccaneers guy? I thought the Buccaneers.
Ali Marpat retired, and then the other guy went to the Bengals. I forget his name, but they traded the 5th round pick to the Patriots for Shaq Mason.
Oh, so, okay.
Okay. So they only had 1 5th round pick instead of 2, but I think that was a trade, not a.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
but anyways, I think similar to the 49ers, this might have been a little bit more organized, in my opinion, but maybe also pay attention to the Buccaneers a little bit more because they're in the NFC South. But similar, I mean, the team's so good. I think they're trying to find best player available for the positional needs that they have. And this was, I think, a fine draft, similar, I think, to kind of a lot of these Patriots drafts when they were winning divisions and then picking very late in the rounds, like just who's the best player available based off what we need. And so then they're going to try and address a lot of the stuff that they have in the offseason because they know guys want to come down to Tampa and play with Tom Brady.
Yeah. And to me, so like at the beginning of the draft, I kind of described this draft as like, this is not the face of the franchise draft. That was last season. Right. Mm-hmm. And to me, this is like the trash man draft. You're going to get a lot of guys that are going to do the dirty work for you that like are going to kind of help you look clean and play solid football and win games. And to me, I think that's what the Buccaneers did here with their first few picks in Logan Hall, Luke Godecki or Godek. I forget how you pronounce that.
Godecki.
I don't know. And I just think they did really good. I like Jake Camarda out of Georgia. That's definitely way too high for a punter, in my opinion. But
actually, I don't think it's high enough. I think they should have taken him in the third round.
Why? Do you really like him? Or are you
just take punters as high as you can.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a strategy for GMs to lose their job. But I just think they had a good draft. I mean, and they brought back a lot of pieces.
The Bucks. Who was the kicker that they drafted in the second round that lasted like
Roberto
3?
Aguayo.
Yeah, it lasted like 3 years in the league or something like that. That GM definitely got fired.
Oh, 100%.
That GM 100% got fired.
Yeah, but like you said, I think this is kind of the Super Bowl winning team draft. They just kind of they take good players, that fit their needs. So
yeah.
So yeah. But then last but not least, we have the Washington Commanders. Interesting draft, in my opinion. I'll let you go first.
Thank you. I think it's kind of a reach to take to just for me, their first pick, and nothing against Jahan Dotson, but you do have Chris Olave and James Williams there. And then you trade back and then take Jahan Dotson, going based off what you like to say, the consensus pick, probably 20 picks sooner than he would have gotten off. Now, there
ESPN
were a
has him at
run.
25, but he was like a 45 guy, like a 45.
There were a run of receivers going off the board, so potentially could not have been there. But for me, and this is where I guess maybe on their board, they had Jahan Dotson ranked higher than Chris Olave and James Williams, which I find that hard to believe, especially over James and Williams. But of course, he did have the ACL injury. I thought that was just interesting. I thought it was just a very interesting draft. They do need a receiver, so they addressed that position. I do also like the Brian Robinson pick because I think that that's going to be a very solid tandem with him. And then
Antonio Gibson.
Yes, Antonio Gibson. I think that's going to be a solid backfield of the Suns. So for me, then, I think this was a fine draft for them. I think some question marks, yes, but that being said, though, they also then did address a lot of their needs. Also, as well, the defensive tackle from Alabama, Fedarian Mathis. I think he's going to fit in really well with that defensive front. The defensive front is going to be as nasty as always. So, very interesting to see. And I don't know how I feel about the Sam Howell pick. I just don't know how I feel about that. I get why you do it. But I think they maybe could have taken a better quarterback earlier or wait till next year.
Yeah, that's my thing. Granted, they spent a 5th rounder on him, so I think worst case scenario, they develop him as a backup. But I don't like the Jahan Dotson pick. I had a middle 2nd round. They took a middle 1st. The Fedarian Mathis pick was also interesting. I thought he would go more end of day 2, not early day 2. But I also did like his tape. I just wasn't as high on him. Fedarian Mathis got taken over Travis Jones to me, which is odd. Travis Jones is a monster. I just it might be a scheme thing, but anyways, I like the Brian Robinson pick. Percy Butler is an interesting guy out of Louisiana. I think it's Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns. But
I think it's just Louisiana.
If you go off ESPN rankings, that's a bit of a reach as well. Taking him at 112 when he was 221. So, and then the Sam Howell thing for me. So if you look at a lot of what Sam Howell ran at North Carolina, especially this past season, their offensive line was a lot better 2 years ago than it was this past season, and they were able to run more complex schemes. But I think almost 80% of his dropbacks were RPOs, which it doesn't work in the NFL. You actually have to progress through reads and make multiple reads on defenders in a matter of seconds. You're not just reading if a linebacker comes to you or away from you. It's not
well, maybe a lot of teams are starting to do that now, though. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals do that, and they've had pretty good success with that. Lamar Jackson definitely does that.
At that high of a volume, it does not work in the NFL. The only time it ever worked consistently was in Super Bowl 52 when the Eagles did it to the Patriots, and that's just because Bill Belichick's defense was slow.
Well, yeah, but for me, another layer that I would go. I think the reason why it works with Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson, maybe they don't do it in the volume at 80%. I need to look at the numbers, but it's Sam Howell on the same elusiveness scale as those guys. So that's where I don't know if they would do that.
If Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray are 9 and 10, I think Sam Howell is a 3 or 4 on that scale. So,
shit, if he's a 3 or 4, where are we? Are we in the negative 2s?
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, maybe lower. But no, I just they had an interesting draft. And
Mhm.
this draft is going to be defined by how good Jahan Dotson is and how big of an impact Darian Mathis is. Everybody else is kind of like not top 100 picks. Like maybe I think Brian Robinson might be like 98
Yeah.
or 99, but like
Mhm.
everybody else is outside the top 100. So, well, I mean, we'll see. It'll be interesting, but I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
And I think some of this stuff and some of our criticisms kind of wrapping up here is like of some of these teams' drafts. I think then they're also at the mercy of the talent that was also in this draft class. There was a lot
yeah,
of good talent, but then not a lot of great talent like last year's draft. Um, and so I think when you have some head scratchers like we both and you for example had a lot of guys. This guy was picked way too early. I would not have picked him this high. As like yeah, they might have viewed him different. They obviously viewed him
yeah.
differently. You know what I
I'm
mean, so
also breaking it down as like what this guy does well and doesn't do well. Whereas teams are breaking them down based off of the scheme that they run and how well he fits. And so there's more levels to it. That like I
mhm,
can't break a guy down for 32 different schemes. Like then
yeah,
so
yeah. No, I'm with you on that. All in all, really though, still of those NFC, the only draft where I really did not like was the Saints. The Saints, I think, really screwed themselves. The Vikings, yeah, you had some question marks. Some of the other teams, as for example,
yeah.
well, the last three we did, the Niners, Bucks, and Commanders were, I mean, like interesting stuff, but but still, there's. I feel like you could just tell they're picking best player available. Unlike a team like the
Yeah. Well,
Lions,
yeah.
the Lions, who yeah, but outside of James and Williams, went defense, defense, defense all the
Yeah.
way through, except for, like
And
for a few exceptions.
yeah, and for me, like teams like the Giants, I think they did well in the first round, but I think as the board kind of fell apart for them, and like maybe some of the players that they thought would be there, I think they just started to reach on players instead of look for value in other places.
Hmm.
And that to me, I think is where a lot of teams get lost. Is like, yeah, you might get really good first round picks, but I
Yeah.
like uh and so I think it was an interesting draft. Also, too, there this draft was highly regarded as or was regarded as a not very deep draft or not a lot of
Hmm.
elite talent, like you said. So uh I think a lot of teams may have taken a different approach to this draft than drafts in the past
Hmm.
because they looked at it and they're like, well, like I don't really like a lot of these players. Like
Hmm.
so I think that played a big role into some of the head scratching decisions. And we haven't even gotten into the AFC yet,
Yeah.
and broken that down. So that'll be coming out next weekend. And so I think it was an interesting draft all in all. And I'm really excited to kind of see how these picks play out. Kind
Hmm.
of do a redraft. So
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I think it's going to be fun.
yeah. But other than that, I think that is going to do it for this episode of the Tracy Take. So thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us talk. We will be back on Sunday night, probably around 9 p.m., and talking about the AFC drafts and giving our review of those. So if you have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and hit that bell notification so we can send you a message every time we go live here on YouTube. And we will see you guys next time.